Come to Candlelight Inn, home of the original Chicken George and Jan Sauce. Dine in, carry out, and catering available. Located in Rock Falls and Sterling, Illinois, as well as Clinton, Iowa. Come try our original Chicken George today.
Need a roof, vinyl windows, or doors? Call R.E. Duchesne Construction. With an A-plus rating for the Better Business Bureau and servicing Will, Grundy, and Kendall counties, call R.E. Duchesne. 815-722-2821. Financing available. Find out more online at reduchene.com.
Are going to come right down to the wire. Yeah, he really likes this field. Team of the Week MVP.
I like Reich.
Since 2016, it's been my privilege to represent the people of the 63rd District. I want to continue representing you as an independent voice in Springfield.
I like Reich. We like Reich.
We're here to help you with your problems that result from an automobile accident or an injury on the job or the loss of a loved one. There's no reason you should go through this alone and guess that you're doing things right.
We deal with tragedies that affect families and individuals every day.
Come here and protect your interest. We've been doing this collectively for over 100 years. Let's put that experience to work for you.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Friday Night Drive podcast. I am Kyle Nabors, along with Steve Soucie. It is Monday, November 20th. It is the Monday after the state semifinals. Souce, how you doing?
Real good. Ready for these state finals to, get going, and it'll be here. The weekend will be here faster than usual. Got the holiday thrown in there too, so it kind of zips up on you. But a real good weekend of semifinal games, and kind of already looking into kind of breaking down those matchups today on Monday.
Yeah, this week always goes fast with Thanksgiving. All of a sudden you wake up on Friday morning and boom, time to get down to state football. We got a good weekend of football ahead. A lot of familiar names. We'll get into that, of course. But make sure you follow us on X at Friday Night Drive. You can find Souce on Twitter at The Souce. You can find myself on Twitter at Kyle Nabors. You can also follow Friday Night Drive on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. If you're watching live with us this morning, whether you're on Facebook or YouTube, you can jump into the chat and ask us questions, leave us comments. We appreciate that. Anything you guys want to talk about, let us know. Otherwise, we're going to run through Class 1A through 8A today over the state semifinal results, break them down. Like I said, if there's anything you guys want to talk about, though, please do jump into the chat. Souce, I'm happy to be talking football this morning. This is my second show live on YouTube this morning. I just got done with a Bears podcast. A bit of a different tenor, I'm guessing, from the crowd in the high school football podcast compared to what I just got done with the Bears podcast, man.
Well, I certainly would hope so. My goodness, I can't imagine that wasn't a tenuous situation talking about what happened there with the Bears yesterday. But moving on to more positive things, let's talk about the semifinals.
Yeah. Let's put the pitchforks away and let's talk about the state semifinal game. I'm going to throw up my screen here. If I can find the state semifinal scores as I've done here throughout the playoffs here, I'll make that a little bit larger to make sure everyone can read that here. All right, Souce, we got Class 1A started out. Lena Winslow made it back to its fourth straight state championship game. Going to get that matchup, a rematch against Camp Point Central. But it was an absolutely epic showdown with Chicago Hope on Saturday. For Lena Winslow to be able to get back to state, Souce.
Well, I mean, I was talking about earlier in the week about how I was having a hard time making a decision as to what game I was thinking about going to, for that first game on Saturday afternoon. Sitting there watching the updates on Twitter, and I was like, man, I made a mistake. I should have gone to Altgeld Park. I mean, that game was a lot different than I expected it would be. Expected Lena Winslow to win the football game, and they did. But, Hope Academy actually had a 2-score lead in the second half. A situation that I never would have guessed would have been coming. Were unable to finish it off, and the game was wild because it seemed like scores were coming fast and furious for the first 3 quarters. It was back and forth, and then all of a sudden it turned into a defensive scuffle. There was a bunch of stops where teams were turning the ball over on downs, and it was just going back and back and back and forth, and finally decided by an interception in the final minute inside the Lena Winslow 5-yard line. So definitely a game that was a lot tighter than a lot of people expected heading into that one. Hope Academy gave them a great run.
Yeah, throughout the post, like Dupac, they returned the opening kickoff against Lena Winslow the week before, and then Lena, do I got that right?
You're mixing that up. That's Byron. You're going into Byron.
I'm going into Byron, which also had a very competitive game that I'm not sure we expected quite as much in the semifinals there. But no, Lena Winslow not pushed. And Hope Academy gave them a really good swing early in that game. At what point, Zeus, did you start to take it serious as like Hope Academy might pull this off?
Well, I mentioned it a little bit before there. In the third quarter, when Hope Academy essentially had, where it required Lena Winslow had a 2-score lead, I was like, boy, maybe. I don't know here. But the fact that they had kind of kept Lena Winslow from effectively running wild early in the game was an indicator that we had a football game going on here. So definitely kind of a unique environment at Hope Academy. I was particularly intrigued by some of the things that I knew. I mean, the backside of the end zone at Altgeld Park is basically a cement wall. So if you run a passing play that goes deep, I mean, you literally hit a brick wall. The Lena Winslow radio crew appears to have brought a radio tower to work off of. I mean, there's all kinds of strange.
I wanted to ask you about that. Like, I was wondering if that was something that was already sitting at Altgeld, or if that was something Lena Winslow, their radio crew, brought with them.
I think it was. I don't know. I haven't verified this yet, but I think it was pulled over on a trailer because it was not at Altgeld Park when I've ever been there before. So a whole different kind of environment there that was created. Tons of fans. It's just it's a different place. It's not what you're accustomed to. I mean, there was a video that I saw, and I've been there before, but I always forget this. Like, there's a baseball backstop like in the corner of like one of the end zones down there. I mean, it's a whole different thing that they got going on there. It's a unique environment for a high school football game. I'll put it that way. And Lena brought some more flavor to that, creating an even more interesting environment. So a wild semifinal game, and a game that, to be honest with you, I didn't expect it to be nearly that wild.
Yeah, Zachary checking in with us this morning says, sorry I'm a little late. Did the result of the Lena and Byron game surprise you guys with how close they were? Well, they absolutely surprised me, so much so that I'm conflating them this morning. Yeah, so we've already talked about Lena. Jumping down there really quick, so we'll talk about Byron a little more in a second. Those were two of, if maybe not the most surprising games of the weekend, and just in terms of how close they were.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, when I look back at like what I expected coming into the weekend, I went 15-1 in picks, but I had my opinions on what games would be close and what games would not be close. And for the most part, those played out. But definitely those two games there, the margins of, how close it was, a little bit more kind of expected that maybe from the Byron game, just because of, the level of competition that Montini played during the year. I still thought Byron would win. But they really had to scrap for that. I mean, it was 3 minutes left in the game was finally when that game was decided as well. So definitely two scrums right there in two games that, to be honest with you, I wasn't sure would be scrums.
Camp Point Central ran away from Greenfield in the southern bracket there. I don't think we were really surprised by that one at all.
I wasn't, and I guess we got to get used to this. Camp Point Central is throwing the hammer down right out of the gate. Did it against Belleville Althoff in the previous week. Jumped out to a huge lead here against Greenfield. Obviously, looking to put their best foot forward in a rematch of last year's 1A state title game.
Yeah, Lena Winslow, Camp Point Central set the meet in that 1A state title game. Join us live on Thursday morning on Wednesday morning at 11 a.m. Usually we do join you on Thursday, but obviously being Turkey Day on Thursday, we'll be joining you at 11 a.m. But let's go ahead, Suze. Let's go on to Class 2A here. You saw Wilmington and Maroa Forsyth in this battle on the north side of the bracket. I think you had a better feel for this game than I did. I thought originally that it was going to be kind of close, and I know behind the scenes you and I were talking. You're like, listen, I think Wilmington, they're playing really well. You kind of said a couple of things to kind of turn me on to this one. Still, 42-7, still caught me a little off guard.
Well, right out of the box, I was a little bit, maybe I had read it wrong. Because Maroa scored. Maroa was bold. They came out. They were kind of deep in their own territory on a 4th and 12 and ran a fake punt. I mean, their quarterback is also their punter, and I'm like, they converted it. Then they went down the field, continued against the Wilmington defense, converted a touchdown on a 4th down play to score on their opening drive. Well, Wilmington kind of silenced any doubt in my mind by scoring on long touchdown runs on 2 of the first 3 plays that they ran from scrimmage. So they established themselves there, and then, to be frank, Maroa Forsyth kind of shot themselves in the foot after that. A pair of interceptions, a pair of fumbles, 4 turnovers in the first half. I think Wilmington scored indirectly off of 3 of those turnovers, built a pretty substantial lead, 28-7 at halftime, then came out and ran a 10.5-minute drive that started just beyond the midfield stripe. So think about that for a minute. 10.5 minutes on a drive that was basically
55 yards?
About 53 yards, I believe what it was. So they just kept chunking. 3 yards, 3 yards, 3 yards, 4th and 1, convert. 3 yards, 3 yards. I mean, and just goose the clock, just basically said, we know you guys can score quickly. You can't score quickly if you don't have football. So they scored on that drive, went up 35-7, and, I mean, any error that was left in the Maroa Forsyth tires were gone. It was an impressive performance.
Wilmington, twice now in the last 3 years, heading back to state. They'll have a matchup against Athens, a 39-6 winner over Shelbyville. Suze, you got anything from that one?
Kind of run away and hit in that one too. I mean, it got out to a pretty substantial lead early in the game. These are somewhat similar teams in what they like to do: control the ball, run the football, do those things. So, I think Wilmington is the better of the 2 teams, but kind of in the same mold.
All right, let's go ahead to Class 3A. We already mentioned it a little bit there. Byron 26-20 winner over Montini. Byron with a late interception in that one. Caden Considine with a touchdown run to put Byron in front, and the Tigers are headed back to state, Suze.
Yeah, it was definitely the biggest challenge Byron has faced this season. Trailed at multiple stages of the game, and like I mentioned a little while ago, punched that in with about 3 minutes left in the game to win it. A great challenge for them. This is the first time Byron's offense has been even remotely slowed down this season. Still within striking distance of the state record for points in a season, but it will be a little bit of a charge that they'll have to take to actually get it in the final. But a good strong effort from Byron, and one of the few occasions where we've seen this year a non-CCL ESCC team knocking one of those squads out of the playoffs. So a big win and something that we kind of looked at as a possibility when the brackets came out, and the game kind of lived up to that advanced billing.
Yeah, and it's a major shout out to sophomore Caden Considine. Not only had the touchdown there, I believe he had 8 of the 9 runs on that go-ahead drive. He also had the interception that set up the game-winning drive. So this time of year, you're looking for people to step up and make plays. That's a sophomore coming up huge for the Byron Tigers. And when you have sophomores that are able to do that, that's why you find teams like that are able to make it back to state championships. year in and year out, Seuss. But on the other side, you have Mount Carmel putting up 63 points against Roxana in the semifinal there. What do you think of that one?
That was a wild game. It felt like literally those guys were scoring every 30, 45 seconds. It was just going back and forth. I was listening to some of the coaches' calls this morning, and Mount Carmel coach Michael Brewer readily admitted there were times they were tired. I mean, they just were physically going so hard on both sides of the ball, like scoring quickly. Defense would be out there. They get scored on. I mean, and it just eventually they got to the point where they were actually almost intentionally running plays kind of towards their sideline that they could get out of bounds on just to give their guys a little bit of a breather. So that was a wild game. Mount Carmel has shown the propensity to put up a lot of points. And this is going in the Wayback Machine, but it was starting to remind me of a semifinal game way back in the day when you used to follow game results, not off of Twitter, but off of message boards. They had a wild game with Greenville that I think actually finished like 70-63 in the playoffs. So no strangers to these types of games, but it definitely sets up an interesting potential matchup in the final game. If Mount Carmel is willing to play, a shootout style like this, Byron, I'm sure, is more than happy to oblige.
Yeah, they got to get to a state record for points in a single season anyway. So the Tigers will be more than happy to get into a track meet, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I can't see any reason why they'd be against it.
How many points is it that they need?
I think they need to score 52 to get the record set by Peoria this week.
I mean, against Mount Carmel, I mean, come on, these teams can get
It's
that
doable.
by halftime.
It's doable. There's no doubt about it. Yeah.
All right. How about Class 4A here, where you had one of the absolute epic games of the weekend, St. Lawrence going double overtime against Wheaton Academy. Cesar Chavez blocking the extra point try there by Wheaton Academy. Chavez talking about after the game about how badly his hand hurt from blocking that kick, and he didn't care because St. Lawrence and the Vikings go into the state title game, Seuss.
Yeah, it's funny because after Wheaton Academy upset IC Catholic in the quarterfinals, I asked Coach Adam Neeson if he's got a very long flowing beard, if his beard had gone a little bit gray in the construct of the IC Catholic game, which they won in the final minute. I was real curious when I checked in with him on the coaches' calls this morning to see if it had gone full gray now. That was a wild game. Wheaton Academy, had the option there of maybe potentially going for 2 to try to win the game in the second overtime, elected to kick it. They've got a good kicker. I saw him a couple of weeks ago. It's just one of those things. They seemed set on trying to go to that third overtime. And as if you don't know, in the third overtime, they take the kicking option away from you. You have to go for 2 once you reach the third overtime. But we're unable to get that third overtime. A huge play by Chavez in that situation to send St. Lawrence to state for, I believe it's either 1978 or 1979 was the last time St. Lawrence reached a state championship game. So a little bit of a drought there.
Aaron Ball, running back for St. Lawrence, with a solid game in that one as well. And I'm pretty sure I saw this morning that he committed to the Illini, right?
Yeah, I saw that this morning as well. I didn't get the specific details on it, but yeah, he has committed to the University of Illinois as of this morning. Correct.
Yeah, congrats to Aaron Ball there. On the south side of the bracket in Class 4A, Rochester Sioux running away from Murfreesboro.
Yeah, pretty much what I expected here. Rochester really, really, strong on both sides of the football, but the thing that's kind of getting lost in the shuffle is how good they are defensively. Murfreesboro scored those 2 touchdowns after the running clock was put in motion in the fourth quarter. A completely dominating performance for them. Like I said, particularly on the defensive side of the ball, Murfreesboro couldn't get anything going.
All right, Sue's going over to Class 5A here. We're halfway through it, everyone. If you're joining us live this morning on YouTube, we do appreciate it. Again, you can jump into the comments and ask us a question if there's anything you guys want to know. Going over to Class 5A, though, Sue's, Nazareth St. Francis is a matchup we talked about extensively throughout the week last week. It was one of the best matchups we were looking forward to in the semifinal round. We know that Wheaton St. Francis won this game back in week 9, and they won it rather handily. Naz coming back, though, this time, Seuss, and picking up the win.
Yeah, it was one of those situations where, St. Francis dug themselves kind of an early hole, but you were like, well, they're not going to lay down here. And they didn't, but they could never quite get back. They get close, but they couldn't quite overcome the early lead that Nazareth built. And with Nazareth, at some point, you just kind of have to just tip your cap because, week after week, it looks like they're in a situation where it might be too much to overcome, especially after that 0-4 start to start the season. There's a reason why, we've had very few 5-loss teams get into the playoffs to begin with, but there's a reason why they don't keep advancing. They had 5 losses during the regular season, but Nazareth is a different animal, and they've shown that over and over again. I guess, like I said, I was 15-1 on my playoff picks. This was the one that I missed. I should have known better, I guess, in the long run, because this is what they do at this time of year. Have the opportunity to set all kinds of interesting records with a win and even with a loss, as they head into the state final week, because this is just unprecedented run for Nazareth.
Adam says, Adam Anderson checking in here says, lots of great games this weekend. Any scores that shocked you guys? Anything, Sue, so far that we've talked about or that we're going to get to?
The one score that, and I don't mean to say that I don't think that this team is a really great football team, because I do. I just thought Batavia was going to give Mount Carmel a better game than they did. To be frank, I did think Mount Carmel would win the game, but I watched the game on television yesterday afternoon after I got home and things settled down. That was an absolutely dominant performance, and once again it makes me wish that Mount Carmel would play up, because I want to see Mount Carmel play Loyola again now, because I don't know how they beat them in the first place. And I think Loyola is very good, but if that's what Mount Carmel is capable of, I don't know, how they would lose. That's really what it comes down to.
Yeah, Adam, that game stood out. The other one, and we'll get to both of these games, talk to them about a little more extensively. I really thought Barrington was going to give Lincoln Way East a better game there. A lot of turnovers in that first half for the Broncos. All right, Suze, going back over to 5A here. Let's finish it off. Joliet Catholic Providence. Joliet Catholic meeting Providence for the second time this year, just like last year. Joliet Catholic won the regular seating meeting. Providence won the postseason meeting. We talked about that this week. Could Providence close that gap again and pull off, win that second matchup? Joliet Catholic denies it this time, though.
Yeah, I talk about this a lot with teams that have, strong playoff histories. Some of these teams just have a playoff year, something that they're able to kind of go to, call upon, and Joliet Catholic has found that gear. There's no question about that. They have been a different football team in the postseason than they were during the regular season. Took some losses in the regular season that, to be frank, I think if they had the opportunity to do it over again, playing the way they are now, I don't think they would be losses. This is just a team that's gone kind of back to basics, but still has a few wrinkles in their offensive attack that they maybe haven't had in the past. So they can throw the football if they need to, if they haven't had to, because their running game is so strong. But you have to be aware of it. So they're they've almost kind of become a pick your poison type of team, because if you put any extra attention on trying to make sure that Joliet Catholic doesn't beat you through the air, that run game will torch you. So it's definitely a different perspective than you're used to Joliet Catholic. Usually, if you can rein in that running game, you got a really good chance to beat Joliet Catholic. Now you kind of got to deal with both, and that's something that's been maybe not emphasized very much in the past by Joliet Catholic. So a trickier team to stop than they've been in the past, and they're playing great football on the defensive side. They are really stifling people and doing a lot of great things. We'll talk about this a little bit more on Wednesday, but this 5A matchup is the one that I think I'm personally the most excited to see.
I was gonna tease our Wednesday show in the exact same fashion. Make sure you tune in Wednesday at 11 a.m. because this is my favorite championship matchup. I can't wait for Saturday morning for this game at 10 a.m. It's going to be a great one. But Seuss, let's go over to Class 6A, Cary Grove, Lake Zurich. I was over there with Joe Stevenson and Alex Kantecki covering this game for Friday Night Drive in the Northwest Herald. And this is Cary Grove really just ran away with this game from the beginning, and like Lake Zurich just couldn't really do much. But the thing here is, I want to get your opinion on it. So, like, you and I agree, right? Cary Grove, fairly substantial favorite going into this game. Lake Zurich did something that drives me insane here, and I'm just going to call it out. Lake Zurich gets the ball first, is going down the field, is at Cary Grove's, I want to say 44-yard line on their opening drive, faces a 4th and 2, right? You're an underdog. You're against a Cary Grove, even if you're like, well, we can't consider ourselves an underdog, blah, blah, blah. Put out the fact that the Cary Grove offense has really not been stopped all season long. Like, you're going to have to score points. Cary Grove, the triple option, right? They punt the ball. They end up punting the ball. They don't go it on 4th and 2. It took Cary, I think, 2 plays to get back to midfield, take the lead, ends up taking the lead. Cary Grove ran 2 drives the entire first half. They scored on both of them, led 14-3 at halftime, come out with the ball in the second half, go down the field and score. It's 21-3. The game's over. It's just, listen, I am not an X's and O guy. Like, I'm not trying to say that I'm smarter than football coaches and all that. But, like, when it comes to game management, you got to know what you're up against. And I would just go and I turned to Alex and I'm like, they're going to regret that. And sure enough, Zeus, they did.
Yeah, it's a tough place to look to in hindsight sometimes in those situations. But I think, I don't know if this is the case in this particular situation. Sometimes you get kind of caught up in that thing where, hey, we're not an underdog in this game. Everyone thinks we're an underdog in this game.
Right.
We're not. And, we believe in our defense. We believe that they can, if we punt this ball away, we can get a stop and maybe convert things. But sometimes you get caught up in that stuff too. And you kind of have to look at the reality of the situation and deal with it in a different way. I like to think that, that if in the same situation, I'd be a little bit more of a riverboat gambler in that type of situation, but it's also the reason that I'm not a high school football coach.
Well, this goes for any level of football. Like, it's what happened with the Bears. Like, do not play to lose football games. Like, playing scared is how you lose. Like, and if you're like Zurich, God, they were really good. Like, on that first drive too. Like, they come out, they have. By the way, number 75, I'm blanking on the name right now. I didn't even know anything about him. Their left tackle is one of the largest high school kids, maybe the largest high school kid I've ever seen. They didn't have the weight and they did not have weight and height listed on their roster. I didn't go back to look it up. I mean, the kid had to be 6'6", 330, right? And they moved him from left side to right side, depending on what side they were going to run the ball to. And it was effective. And I'm like, just
so the Patrick Babcock offense. I mean, that's an old reference, but Stillman Valley had a Division I caliber offensive lineman that I remember in a state final once. They did exactly the same thing. You literally knew where they were running the ball because they would move him to whatever side of the field they were running to, and the other team couldn't do anything about it. They just smashed their way down the field.
Cary Grove's good enough. Maybe they figured it out. But on that first drive, it was certainly effective. And I was just like, just keep going. And, even on the second drive, Lake Zurich, they get down there. It was effective again, and they end up settling for the field goal. You just can't do it against teams like Cary Grove. It comes back to bite Lake Zurich in the behind, and it sets up a matchup, Zeus, against the East St. Louis, a 34-18 winner over Washington. East St. Louis kind of did what we expected here against Washington, but it sets up a matchup against Cary Grove in the championship that I think we're both looking forward to, at least.
Yeah, East St. Louis, just kind of slowly pulled away in this one. Washington gave it a little bit better fight than I thought that they would. They were, kind of hanging around, but, you're not going to contain East St. Louis all game long. And eventually they gave up a couple of big plays in the wrong places and sets up that 6A game that I'm curious to know if Coach Sunkett's really excited about the rematch possibilities with Cary Grove. But I did believe early in the season he was intimating that maybe he didn't really look forward to having to play them again. So should be fun.
I think Coach Sunkett and that staff is a bit tired of preparing for the triple option offense in state title games. But in Class 7A suit, Downers Grove North 42-0 over Normal Community. I thought Normal could keep this in the realm of respectable. Downers Grove North playing really, really, really well right now, Suze. I want to put this in a different frame, okay? Mount Carmel's the favorite in this game and going into the state title game. considering how well Downers Grove North continues to play in this postseason, do you give them a chance? Can you give them a chance?
I have a hard time doing so, to be honest with you. And I really love what Downers Grove North has done this postseason.
Dude, they're playing awesome football.
They really are. You know, and they have, you know, the one thing that I can give them is that I think there's probably a lot of belief in there that they can play in this game, and that's what you need. You need to have that thought process in your head that it can be done. And definitely a good situation for them. You know, heading in there, they've got a ton of momentum at their backs, and I think the biggest key in this game is going to come right off the box. Can they do something with their first opportunity? And then maybe you get a little wind under your sails, and maybe it starts happening for you. But
same thing we were talking about with Lake Zurich there. Do not play scared.
Yeah, it's really, really important that they come out and have something go well for them in this game right out of the box, whether it be offensive or defensive. Something's got to happen. Like I said, get a little wind in their sails, extend that belief as long as you possibly can, and then maybe you got a football game. But I still put a lot of stock right now in how well Mount Carmel is playing. It's a whole other level.
That's what I was going to say. Transition over to that other game, man. Like, as well as Downers Grove North is playing, like, you look at that result against Batavia for Mount Carmel. Holy cow, man! Like, that is an impressive win for Mount Carmel.
Yeah, and I mean it seemed like Darian Dupree has had a good season for Mount Carmel, but it seems like once we've gone into the playoffs, he's taking the opportunity to take advantage of the fact that he gets to participate this year in the postseason after missing it last year, because he's been fantastic. There was an absolutely ridiculous first half touchdown run by him in this game that stretched their lead to 28-7 at the time. I mean,
don't forget about the touchdown catch he had too. I don't know how he caught that ball. Just go search Darian Dupree on Twitter right now, and you will find I do not have any idea how he caught that football.
Yeah, it was. I mean, just a couple of crazy plays, and I knew they were coming. Like I said, I didn't watch the game until yesterday, but I knew they were coming, so I was looking out for them. I can't even imagine what my reaction would have been to witnessing that live. You know, as it happened, because I mean, two just absolutely ridiculous plays that you don't see at any level, let alone the high school level, very often.
All right, one class left here, Souce. Loyola 23 over York 14. York put up a pretty good effort in this game, and particularly, at halftime, the Dukes were right there. At the end of the day, I think Loyola just was able to do what Loyola does. Like, they were like, all right, we're in a dogfight. We're going to just wear you down then. Like, we're going to use our numbers. We're going to use our size. We're just going to make this incredibly difficult for you to find a way to eke out this win.
They were up 14-3 in this game, York was, at one point, which immediately just shocked me at the time. I was, like, really, really surprised. But like you said, you never, like, especially it was that early in the game, you kind of felt like, Loyola wasn't going to take this as some sort of haymaker and get knocked down. They were just going to keep coming at you. And before you knew it, it was 14-10, then 16-14. And then, I mean, it just felt like you said, just kind of wore them down, put them in positions that they were uncomfortable in. But York gave them a much, much better fight than I thought that they would in this situation. Credit to them, giving them a great run there. But Loyola does what Loyola does at this time of year. They find ways, and it feels like, and I know this isn't the case, but it feels like we've seen 10 or 15 of these games, and they're always at Loyola. I mean, I don't know how this works, but I've seen games involving Lincoln Way East. It was a field goal difference, and it was at Loyola. And it was just like all these games. It seems like Loyola gets in games at their own field that they seem to, eke their way through and get the victory. So I don't know why that is. Obviously the way the setup is, Loyola isn't hosting every playoff game, but it sure feels like it.
It certainly does at times, yeah. On the other side, Lincoln Way East 49-6 over Barrington. It's a big margin, right? But you saw this game; it was closer than it appears. Correct?
Not really.
But
no,
I mean, I thought didn't Barrington have 3 red zone turnovers in the first half?
Well, I mean, they did and they didn't. I mean, it was kind of like they were approaching the red zone. They weren't exactly there. And at that point, it was kind of like we were, just so much defensive pressure from Lincoln Way East. It felt like they were in the backfield all game long. All the things that Barrington did offensively that they had done during this run where it felt like they could score at will and do. Lincoln Way East just kind of took them completely out of their rhythm. There was a franticness to Barrington that I don't think they ever quite recovered from. It was a really, really dominating performance again by this Lincoln Way East defense that, you look at the score and you think Lincoln Way East had a huge offensive game. He really didn't. I mean, it was kind of created by getting good field position, turnovers, getting return men, and then they broke a few plays, but it wasn't like there was just this offensive juggernaut. This was all set out by, once again, stellar defensive play.
Yeah, they played a really complete game here, and you just can't do that. If Barrington, you can't do that. You cannot turn the ball over against Lincoln Way East and expect to be in the game. Seuss Dominic checks in with us this morning and says, can Lincoln Way East get revenge against Loyola? By the way, Steve, saw you in Crossing at the East game. Keep up the amazing work Friday Night Drive. Love following along. Seuss, Lincoln Way East, Loyola, can they get revenge?
We'll get a little bit more on Wednesday, but, I think it's a little bit more possible than I maybe would have thought if you would have asked me the same question a week ago, saying that they would both get to the finals. I still think Loyola is the favorite in this game. I don't think the gap is that wide, though. Like, that's what it really kind of comes down to me. I still feel like the likelihood of Loyola getting a big offensive play when they need it is more likely. It's not exceptionally more likely, but there are just some indications that maybe if you need a big play, you need a game breaker, it's more likely to come from the Loyola offense than the Lincoln Way East offense. I also think that it's possible that this game, we go to overtime and these two teams are tied at 3. I mean, I think that's a possibility as well. I think, what I do not expect is a 42-28 game. And if that happens, you'll have to resuscitate me on the sideline because I'll be passed out from shock. I mean, I just don't see that happen.
This kind of sets up as a classic Saturday of state championship football where the first 3 games are absolute just barn burners, and then we get to the 8A game, and it's 7-3.
Yeah, I mean that's the reality of the situation. This was a 14-3 game last year when the two teams played that Loyola won that game. But it really, really came down to one pass play that kind of separated the game early on, gave Loyola that touchdown, and then it was like, I don't know if anybody else is going to score a touchdown in this game. That's really kind of what it came down to. So, Lincoln Way East has been in several of these types of championship games where, eventually they won their championship game over Warren in a defensive slugfest where they got one big play from A.J. Henning and a couple of field goals, and that was all they got. I mean, they didn't get anything else the rest of the way. So, like I said, if this is a high-scoring affair, color me completely and totally shocked. I expect a defensive scuffle where 1 or 2 plays is going to make the absolute difference in this game, unless one team gets turnover prone. That's obviously the wild card, but boy, it is really shaping up to be an absolute defensive struggle for the final game of the state championship game weekend.
Weather on the Go says, how about those Bears? They just keep losing. Good to hear. I might as well find a new team to cheer for at this point. Yeah, Weather on the Go. That's why you tune in to talk some high school football. Stay away from the Chicago Bears. Seuss, we got to get out of here. Make sure everyone, you come back on Wednesday and join us at 11 a.m. Of course, you can find the Friday Night Drive podcast wherever you get your podcast. Make sure you stick to FridayNightDrive.com all week long. Of course, we'll have coverage for you. And then I shouldn't say our entire crew, but a lot of us from Friday Night Drive heading down to Normal this weekend for coverage at Illinois State University. I can't wait, honestly. I've never had a chance to see a football game at ISU ever since I've been doing this professionally. It's been at Champaign or DeKalb. So looking forward to seeing a new facility, Seuss.
Yeah, it should be fun. I'm very intrigued to see how the environment plays out. Like I said, I was very interested in that week 1 game that I went to with East St. Louis, Mount Carmel. There was a good crowd. There was good energy in the stadium. And this was one of the things that I think that they were considering when they decided where to move the state finals to. Where can we create, kind of an experience like where, it's loud. It feels like a state championship game. I think they might have cracked the code here, because if the crowds are decent, they've put those fans on both sides. It's cozy enough to kind of feel like, you got a lot of energy going on. As much as I liked the finals at the University of Illinois, it felt like we were playing in Cavern, especially in the smaller classes.
Yeah.
Not just a huge facility, a beautiful facility, but just not enough people in there to make it feel like what you would hope the state championship would feel like. So I'm interested. I'm really interested to see how it all plays out. And I think we've got, especially on Saturday, I think we've got a really, really good lineup of games that I think could be really, really interesting.
He is Steve Soucie. I am Kyle Nabors. This is FridayNightDrive.com. Make sure you come back with us at 11 a.m. Wednesday morning. We'll be getting you set for state title game down in Normal. For now, we're going to go ahead and sign off. Thank you, everyone who joined us live this morning. We'll see you guys on Wednesday.
Come to Candlelight Inn, home of the original Chicken George and Jan Sauce. Dine in, carry out, and catering available. Located in Rock Falls and Sterling, Illinois, as well as Clinton, Iowa. Come try our original Chicken George today.
Need a roof, vinyl windows, or doors? Call R.E. Duchesne Construction. With an A-plus rating for the Better Business Bureau and servicing Will, Grundy, and Kendall counties. Call R.E. Duchesne, 815-722-2821. Financing available. Find out more online at reduchene.com.
Are going to come right down to the wire. Yeah, he really likes this field. Team of the Week MVP.
I like Reich.
I like Reich.
Since 2016, it's been my privilege to represent the people of the 63rd District. I want to continue representing you as an independent voice in Springfield.
I like Reich. We like Reich.
We're here to help you with your problems that result from an automobile accident or an injury on the job or the loss of a loved one. There's no reason you should go through this alone and guess that you're doing things right.
We deal with tragedies that affect families and individuals every day.
Come here and protect your interests. We've been doing this collectively for over 100 years. Let's put that experience to work for you.